Ellie Dawson's knees hit the mud before she could scream. A hand, bony, iron strong, grabbed the back of her neck and shoved her face down into the pig trough. The slop filled her nose, her mouth, her lungs burning as she choked on rotten grain and filth. She clawed at the hand, but it pressed harder. "You want to eat like an animal?" Ida's voice hissed above her. "Then eat." Ellie had been drowning like this for 3 years. Not in water, in silence. In a town that watched and did nothing. Until the day a cowboy rode in who didn't know how to look away. If this story grabs your heart, hit that subscribe button right now and follow Ellie's journey all the way to the end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. They say God watches over the helpless. But in Redstone Gulch, Montana, in the summer of 1881, God must have blinked. Because nobody watched over Ellie Dawson. Not the miners who passed her house every morning. Not the women who bought eggs from her stepmother's porch. Not the reverend who preached about mercy on Sundays and looked the other way on Mondays. Ellie was 19 years old, and she hadn't spoken her own name out loud in 2 years. Ida didn't allow it. Ida called her girl, or it, or nothing at all. Just a snap of fingers and a pointed finger toward whatever chore needed doing. That morning, the sun hadn't fully cleared the ridge when Ida's voice cut through the house like a rusted blade. "Girl, the pigs ain't fed." Ellie was already moving. She'd learned to sleep with her boots on. She'd learned to wake before the voice came. Because the voice always came, and what followed the voice was worse. She grabbed the bucket of slop from the kitchen. Potato skins, stale bread, the grease Ida scraped from her own plate, and hurried out to the pen behind the house. 6 hogs, fat and grunting, pressed against the fence rail, their snouts wet and eager. Ellie poured the slop into the trough. Her hands shook. They always shook now. She couldn't remember when they'd stopped being steady. "You spilled." Ellie froze. Ida was standing on the back porch, arms crossed, mouth a thin, bloodless line. She wore a clean cotton dress, her hair pinned neatly, her posture Sunday straight. Ida Pruitt Dawson didn't look like a monster. She looked like a church deacon's wife. That was the worst part. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll clean it up." "You're always sorry." Ida stepped off the porch. Her boots didn't hurry. They never hurried. Ida moved slow when she was about to hurt you. She savored it the way some women savored tea. "Sorry don't feed pigs. Sorry don't earn keep. Sorry is what useless people say when they got nothing else to offer." "I'll fix it, ma'am. I promise." Ida reached her. Ellie didn't step back. Stepping back made it worse. She'd learned that in the first month after Pa died. You stand still. You take it. You breathe after. Ida grabbed the back of Ellie's neck. Her fingers were thin but strong, the grip of a woman who wrung chicken necks without flinching. "You know what you are, girl?" "No, ma'am." "You're a pig." Ida's voice was calm, almost tender. "You eat my food. You sleep under my roof. You give me nothing but mess and trouble. So if you're going to live like a pig—" She shoved Ellie's head down into the trough. The slop closed over Ellie's face, warm, rancid, thick with rot. It filled her nostrils. She gagged, her body convulsing, but Ida held firm, pressing down on the back of her skull with both hands now. "Eat," Ida commanded. "Go on. Eat with the animals. That's where you belong." Ellie's hands gripped the edge of the wooden trough. Her fingers turned white. She could feel the pigs nudging against her arms, confused, still hungry, nosing at the slop around her face. The humiliation burned worse than the choking. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Ida pulled her up. Ellie gasped, slop dripping from her chin, her hair plastered to her face. She didn't cry. She hadn't cried in front of Ida since the first year. Crying was fuel. Crying made Ida smile. "Clean yourself up," Ida said, wiping her hands on her apron as if she'd touched something diseased. "Then get to the wash. Mrs. Fenton's lemons are due by noon. You're behind." "Yes, ma'am." Ida walked back to the porch. She paused at the door and turned. "And Ellie?" Ellie looked up. Ida almost never used her name. "If I hear you talk to anyone in town today, anyone at all, you'll sleep with the pigs tonight. Not beside them. With them. In the pen. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." The screen door banged shut. Ellie stood alone in the yard. The hogs grunted around her feet. A fly landed on her cheek, drawn by the slop still clinging to her skin. She didn't swat it. She just stood there, dripping, staring at the spot where Ida had stood. Then she walked to the well, drew up a bucket, and poured ice-cold water over her own head. She did it twice, 3 times, until the smell was gone, until her hands stopped shaking, until she could feel her face again. She wrung out her hair, pulled it back, and picked up the laundry basket. The walk into town was 20 minutes. Ellie kept her head down, the basket balanced on her hip. She passed the miners' camp, men with soot-black hands eating breakfast by open fires. She passed the livery stable. She passed the schoolhouse where children played in the yard, laughing at something she couldn't see. Nobody greeted her. Some looked. Most didn't. In Redstone Gulch, Ellie Dawson was invisible. Ida had made sure of that. She'd told every woman at the church auxiliary that Ellie was touched in the head. Slow. Dangerous even. "The girl sets fires," Ida had whispered to the Reverend's wife. "She hurts animals. I do my Christian duty keeping her, Lord knows, but she ain't right." None of it was true, but truth didn't matter in a town where one woman controlled the church donations and the egg supply. Ellie delivered the linens to Mrs. Fenton's back door. Mrs. Fenton was a large woman, with soft hands and a softer conscience. She took the basket without meeting Ellie's eyes. "Thank you, girl. Tell your mother the payment's inside the flour tin on the porch." "She ain't my mother," Ellie whispered. "What was that?" "Nothing, ma'am. Thank you." Ellie picked up the flour tin. Inside were 3 copper pennies and a note. Next load by Thursday. 3 pennies. For 6 hours of scrubbing. Every cent went to Ida. She turned to leave and nearly collided with a man. He was tall. Not freakishly so, but tall enough that Ellie had to look up, which she hated doing. He wore a wide-brimmed hat, dust-caked from days of riding. A sweat-stained shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, leather chaps over worn denim, and a face that looked like it had been carved from sandstone and then cracked. A scar ran from his left temple down to his jaw, white against sun-darkened skin. "Whoa there," he said, steadying her with one hand on her shoulder. His grip was light, almost careful. Ellie flinched, hard. She jerked away from his hand as if it were a branding iron, nearly dropping the flour tin. "Easy," the man said, pulling his hand back. "Didn't mean to spook you, miss." "I'm fine. Excuse me." Ellie sidestepped him, heart hammering. She kept her eyes on the ground. "Miss?" She stopped but didn't turn. "You got something. On your hair. Looks like..." He paused. "Grain? Pig feed, maybe?" Ellie's stomach dropped. She reached up and felt it. A clump of soggy oats tangled near her left ear. She'd missed it at the well. Her face burned so hot she thought her skin might blister. She yanked the clump out and walked faster, almost running. She heard the man say something else behind her, but the blood rushing in her ears drowned it out. She didn't look back. Cole Masterson watched the girl disappear around the corner of the dry goods store. He stood there for a moment, hat tilted, thumb hooked in his belt, chewing on something that wasn't food. Something that tasted like a question he didn't want to ask. He'd been in Redstone Gulch for exactly 47 minutes, long enough to water his horse, pay for a night at the livery, and walk into town looking for a meal and a drink. He hadn't expected to nearly knock over a girl who flinched like she'd been hit by every hand she'd ever known. He'd seen that flinch before, on horses that had been broken wrong, on dogs that cowered when you reached for them, on men in field hospitals who heard a twig snap and dove for cover. That kind of flinch didn't come from one bad day. It came from years. "You must be the drover," a voice said behind him. Cole turned. A thick-armed man with a white apron and a face like a friendly bulldog stood in the doorway of the building across the street. A sign above it read, "Morrow's Saloon and Post." "That's me," Cole said. "Cole Masterson. Brought a herd up from Cheyenne. They're pastured 5 miles south. Hank Morrow." The man extended a meaty hand. "Come on in. First drinks on the house for any man fool enough to drive cattle through June heat." Cole followed him inside. The saloon was dim and cool, which was a mercy. He sat at the bar, and Hank poured him a whiskey without asking what he wanted. Cole drank it in one swallow. He set the glass down and stared at it. "The girl," Cole said. Hank's hand stopped mid-pour on the refill. "What girl?" "Dark hair, thin, carrying laundry. Had pig feet in her hair and a bruise on her collarbone she was trying to hide with her dress." "Who is she?" Hank set the bottle down slowly. He looked at Cole with a careful expression of a man deciding how much truth he could afford. "That's Ellie Dawson, Sam Dawson's girl. Sam died in the copper mine collapse 3 years back. Good man. Best man in this town, matter of fact." "And her mother?" "Dead. Died birthing Ellie. Sam married again. Woman named Ida Pruitt. Widow from Helena. Seemed decent enough when Sam was alive." Hank wiped the bar with a rag that was dirtier than the bar. "Everything changed after the collapse." Cole turned the empty glass in his fingers. "Changed how?" Hank looked toward the door, then back at Cole. His voice dropped. "Ida keeps that girl like a dog. Worse than a dog. I've seen men treat their hounds with more kindness. Ellie does every lick of work on that property. Feeds the animals, does the wash for half the women in town, hauls water, chops wood, and Ida takes every penny." "The bruise on her collarbone," Cole said. "That ain't from chopping wood." Hank's jaw tightened. "No, it ain't. And nobody does a damn thing." Hank slammed the rag down. "You think I haven't tried? I wrote to the sheriff's office in Helena, twice. You know what they told me? A woman disciplining her own child is a family matter. Ida ain't even her blood mother, but she's got the legal claim. Sam made her guardian in his will. He didn't know. He thought he was protecting Ellie." "What about the Reverend? The law?" Hank laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Reverend Whitley gets a fresh ham from Ida every Christmas and a $5 donation to the building fund every month. He preaches about honoring thy father and mother and looks at Ellie when he says it. As for the law, the nearest deputy marshal comes through maybe twice a year, and Ida puts on a show so good you'd think she was up for a stage award. Sweet voice, clean house, cookies on the table. She tells them Ellie's troubled, slow, dangerous. And they believe her because Ida looks like a saint and Ellie looks like a scared animal." Cole sat very still. The glass in his hand had stopped turning. "I give the girl food when I can," Hank said quietly. "Bread, jerky. I leave it in the flour tin at Fenton's place so Ida don't find out. It ain't enough. I know it ain't enough. But if Ida finds out I'm helping, she'll cut Ellie off from town completely. She's done it before. Kept the girl locked in the cellar for 2 weeks last winter. Told everyone Ellie was sick with fever. The cellar, Cole repeated. The cellar. Silence stretched between them. The kind of silence that has weight. I ain't asking you to do anything, Masterson, Hank said carefully. You're a drover passing through. You got your own business. This ain't your fight. Cole put the glass down. He reached into his vest pocket, pulled out a coin, and set it on the bar for the drink. What's Ida's place look like? White House, edge of town, east side. Pig pen in the back. You can't miss it. Hank paused. And you can't miss the sound, neither. If you go by in the evening, sometimes you can hear... He stopped, swallowed. Just don't go by in the evening. Cole picked up his hat from the bar and put it on. He walked to the door and stopped. Hank. Yeah? The girl, Ellie. She ever talk to anybody? She ever ask for help? Hank shook his head slowly. That girl hasn't asked for a single thing from anyone in 3 years. She says yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and sorry, ma'am. That's the whole of it. Ida beat the voice right out of her. Cole stood in the doorway. The afternoon sun cut across his face, lighting up the scar. That, Cole said quietly, is the worst thing you've told me yet. He stepped out into the heat and turned east. Ellie was hanging wash on the line behind the house when she heard the boots. Not Ida's boots. Ida's boots were sharp-heeled and clicked on hard ground like a metronome. These boots were heavy, deliberate. The walk of a man who covered long distances and didn't rush. She didn't look up. Looking up was dangerous. Afternoon. His voice. The man from town. The one she'd bumped into. Ellie's hands tightened on the wet shirt she was pinning. Ma'am ain't home, Ellie said quickly. If you got business, come back tomorrow. I ain't here for her. Ellie's hands stopped. She stared at the clothesline. Her heart started that familiar hammering. Then you should go, she whispered. Please, you'll get me in trouble. I won't stay long. I just need to ask you something. I can't talk to strangers. She's got rules. I reckon she's got a lot of rules. Cole stepped closer. Not too close. He left a good 10 feet between them, like he was approaching a deer he didn't want to startle. My name's Cole Masterson. I'm a drover. I'll be in town a few days, selling cattle. Good for you. Please leave. That bruise on your collarbone. And the one on your wrist you're covering with your sleeve. Those from falling downstairs? Ellie's blood turned to ice. She yanked her sleeve down lower. I'm clumsy. You ain't clumsy. I watched you carry a full laundry basket a quarter mile without shifting your grip once. That takes balance and strength. Clumsy people don't move like that. You were watching me? Fear flickered into anger for just a second. Why were you watching me? Because you had pig feet in your hair and terror in your eyes. And nobody in this whole town seemed to notice or care. That bothered me. Ellie finally looked at him. Really looked at him. He was leaning against the fence post, arms crossed, hat tipped back. The scar caught the light. His eyes were brown. Not warm brown, not soft brown, but steady brown. The brown of packed earth, of something that didn't move when pushed. Lots of things bother people, Ellie said. They get over it. I don't. The screen door banged. Both of them turned. Ida stood on the porch. She held a wooden spoon in her right hand, the heavy oak one she used for stirring lye soap, and for other things. Ellie, Ida's voice was silk over a razor. Who is this man? Nobody, ma'am. He's leaving. I asked you a question. Who is He. Cole straightened up from the fence. He removed his hat. "Ma'am, name's Cole Masterson. I didn't ask you." Ida didn't look at him. Her eyes were locked on Ellie. "I asked her." The air between them was suffocating. Ellie could feel it, the invisible noose tightening. If she answered wrong, she'd pay tonight. If she answered right, she'd still pay, because a man was at the fence, and that alone was a sin in Ida's book. "He's a cattle drover, ma'am. He just stopped to ask directions." Directions. Ida's lips curled. "And what directions did you give him?" "I told him to leave, ma'am." Ida looked at Cole for the first time. She studied him the way a person studies a stain on a tablecloth, with distaste and calculation. "Mr. Masterson, was it? This is my property. My stepdaughter has work to do. She don't socialize with strangers. She ain't well." "She looks well enough to me," Cole said. Something shifted in Ida's face. A muscle twitched near her eye. "You a doctor?" "No, ma'am." "Then you ain't qualified to assess her condition. Ellie has troubles. She's fragile. I keep her close for her own protection. I'm sure a man of the road can understand a mother's concern." Cole looked at Ida, then at Ellie, then back at Ida. "I understand a great deal, ma'am," Cole said. He put his hat back on. "I apologize for the intrusion. I'll be on my way." He tipped his hat. He turned. He walked 3 steps. "Ma'am?" He said it over his shoulder, not turning back. "Yes?" Ida's voice was sharp. "That bruise on Ellie's wrist, the one shaped like 4 fingers and a thumb. That don't come from being fragile. That comes from being grabbed. Hard." Silence. "Good evening, ma'am." Cole walked away. His boots crunched on the dry dirt, steady and unhurried. Ida watched him go. Her knuckles whitened around the wooden spoon. She turned to Ellie. "Inside," Ida said. "Now!" Ellie dropped the wet shirt back into the basket. She walked toward the porch. She didn't look at Cole's retreating figure. She didn't dare. But somewhere deep inside her chest, in a place she thought had died 3 years ago when her father's body was pulled from the mine, something flickered. Not hope. She didn't know that word anymore. Something smaller. Something quieter. A question. What kind of man sees bruises and doesn't look away? Ida's hand closed around her arm the moment she stepped inside. The door slammed. The oak spoon rose. Ellie didn't make a sound. She never did. But this time, for the first time in 3 years, she kept her eyes open. She stared at the wall while the blows fell, and she thought about steady brown eyes and a voice that said, "I don't." Cole Masterson sat on the edge of the water trough outside the livery stable. The sun was going down, painting the sky the color of a healing bruise. His horse, a sturdy blue roan named Bishop, nudged at his shoulder, looking for sugar. "Not now, boy," Cole muttered. He rolled a cigarette, lit it, drew deep. He should leave. He had cattle to sell, a drive to finish, and a warrant in Texas that he needed to stay far away from. He had no business in this town. He had no business with that girl. He had no claim on her suffering, and no right to interfere with how a woman raised her kin. That's what a smart man would tell himself. Cole had never been accused of being smart. He thought about Ellie's face when she'd looked at him over the clothesline. Not her expression. She'd kept that locked down tight, the way a prisoner keeps their face blank during sentencing. It was her eyes. Just for a second, before she'd shut it down, he'd seen something flash in those eyes. Not hope. Rage, buried so deep she probably didn't even know it was there. But Cole knew what caged fury looked like. He'd seen it in the eyes of men shackled to artillery wheels for punishment during the war. He'd felt it in himself when he came home to an empty house and a letter that said Abigail was gone, And Thomas was gone. And everything was gone. Rage that deep didn't die. It waited. He smoked the cigarette down to his fingers and flicked it into the dirt. Hell, he whispered to Bishop. The stutter came out when no one was listening. The horse didn't judge. He should leave in the morning. He knew he wouldn't. Somewhere across town, behind a white house at the edge of the East Road, a girl with pig feet in her hair was learning that not every hand in the world was raised to strike. And Cole Masterson, who had ridden away from everything he'd ever loved, was about to find out that some things won't let you ride away from them. No matter how far you go, no matter how fast you run. Some things plant themselves in your chest like a bullet that won't come out. And Ellie Dawson was already under his skin. Cole didn't sleep that night. He lay on the straw cot in the livery loft, staring at the ceiling, listening to the town settle into silence. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing. Ellie's sleeve pulling down over her wrist, and the shape of 4 fingers pressed into her skin like a brand. He'd seen war. He'd watched men die in ditches with their guts spilling into the mud. He'd held a boy from Ohio who was 17 and calling for his mother, while blood poured out of a hole in his chest that Cole's hands couldn't cover. None of that haunted him the way that bruise did, because the boy from Ohio was killed by an enemy. Ellie was being killed by the person who was supposed to protect her. At dawn, he was at Hank Morrow's bar before the man had even unlocked the door. "Lord Almighty, Masterson!" Hank squinted at him through the morning light. "I don't serve whiskey before sunrise." "I don't want whiskey. I want information." "About what?" "About Ida Pruitt. About the law. About what it would take to get that girl out of that house legally." Hank stared at him for a long moment, then pushed the door open. "Come inside. This ain't a porch conversation." They sat at a corner table. Hank poured coffee, thick, bitter, the kind that could strip paint. "You're asking the wrong questions, Masterson. It ain't about legal. Ida's got guardianship papers signed by a judge in Helena. Sam Dawson put her name down before he died. In the eyes of Montana Territory law, Ellie belongs to Ida until she's 21, or until she marries." "Marries," Cole repeated. "Don't even think about it. Ida would have to consent. She won't. Ellie's her workhorse. That girl does the labor of 3 hired hands and costs Ida nothing but table scraps." Cole wrapped both hands around the tin cup. "What about the deputy marshal? There's got to be some law against what she's doing." "Eugene Tate. He rides through twice a year, maybe 3 times. Good lawman, actually. Honest. Problem is, every time he comes, Ida transforms. Clean house. Ellie in a fresh dress. Cookies on the table. Ida cries about how hard it is raising a difficult child alone. Tate leaves thinking Ida's a damn saint." "And if someone told Tate what's really happening?" Hank leaned forward. "Who? Me? The town drunk who runs a saloon? The miners who can't afford to lose their egg supply? Mrs. Fenton, who gets her laundry done for 3 pennies? Everyone in this town benefits from Ellie's suffering, Masterson. They just don't call it that. They call it Ida's business." Cole pushed the coffee away. "That's not business. That's slavery." "Welcome to Redstone Gulch." Hank's voice was flat and tired. The voice of a man who'd been angry for 3 years and run out of places to put it. "Now you see why I drink my own inventory." Cole stood up. The chair scraped hard against the floor. "When does Tate come through next?" "Could be next week. Could be September. There's no schedule." "Where does Ida send the girl during the day?" Hank frowned. "Why?" "Because I can't help someone who won't talk to me." And she won't talk to me with Ida watching." Hank rubbed his face with both hands. "Ellie delivers laundry, Tuesdays and Fridays to Mrs. Fenton, Wednesdays to the mining foreman's wife up at the North Camp. She hauls water from the creek every morning before dawn, and she buys supplies at Garrett's Dry Goods every Saturday." "Today's Wednesday." "Masterson." Hank grabbed his sleeve as Cole moved toward the door. "Be careful. Ida ain't just mean. She's smart. She's got Reverend Whitley in her pocket, and Whitley's got the ear of every respectable family in town. If Ida decides you're a threat, she won't come at you direct. She'll turn the whole town against you. She'll say you're a drifter, a criminal. She'll say you're after the girl for bad reasons. And people will believe her, because it's easier to believe the devil you know than the stranger you don't." Cole looked down at Hank's hand on his sleeve. "I appreciate the warning." "It ain't a warning. It's a prophecy." Cole walked out into the morning heat. He untied Bishop from the rail outside the saloon and swung into the saddle. The North mining camp was 2 miles up the Ridge Road. He had cattle business up that direction anyway. At least, that's what he'd tell anyone who asked. He found her on the road halfway to the camp. She was carrying a bundle of folded linens on her head, both arms raised to balance the load. Even from 50 yards, he could see she was favoring her left side. Ribs, probably. Ida had been thorough last night. He slowed Bishop to a walk and came up alongside her. Ellie heard the hooves and stiffened. She didn't look up. "I told you to leave me alone," she said. "I'm not following you. I got cattle business at the North Camp." "Liar. There ain't no cattle operations at North Camp. It's all copper." Cole almost smiled. "You're sharp." "I ain't sharp. I just ain't stupid. There's a difference." She kept walking, eyes fixed on the road. "You got me hit last night. You know that? She saw you at the fence. She used the spoon. The oak one." The words hit Cole like a mule kick to the chest. He pulled Bishop to a stop. "Ellie, don't." She stopped walking, but didn't face him. Her voice was shaking, and he could tell she was furious about that. "Don't say you're sorry. Sorry don't undo bruises. Sorry don't put my ribs back together. You think you're helping? You're making it worse. Every time somebody notices, she punishes me harder. Because I'm the one who let them see." "That ain't your fault." "Fault don't matter." She spun around. Her eyes were blazing. That buried rage he'd seen before, except now it wasn't buried. It was right there on the surface, raw and hot and terrifying. "You ride into town on your pretty horse with your big conscience, and you think you can fix this? You can't fix this. Nobody can fix this. I just need to survive 2 more years until I'm 21 and the guardianship ends. That's my plan. That's my only plan. And you are ruining it." She was breathing hard. The linens had slipped on her head. She caught them with one hand and winced. The ribs. Cole dismounted. He took the bundle from her before she could protest. "Give that back." "No." "Give it back. If she finds out a man carried my load..." "How would she find out?" "She finds out everything. She's got eyes in this town. Mrs. Fenton reports to her. The miners' wives report to her. Even the children report to her because she gives them penny candy for information. You don't understand." "You think this is just a mean woman in a house. It's not. It's a cage. The whole town is the cage. She built it bar by bar for 3 years, and there is no way out." Ellie's voice cracked on the last word. She pressed her hand against her mouth and turned away. Cole stood there holding the linens. He didn't move toward her. He didn't try to touch her. He just waited. After a minute, Ellie wiped her face with the back of her hand and turned around. Her eyes were red but dry. She'd swallowed the tears before they could fall. Practiced. "Give me the laundry," she said quietly. "I'll carry it to the camp. You walk beside me. If anyone asks, I hired you to guide me to the foreman's office for cattle business. That gives you a reason to be seen with me." "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Not angry now. Tired. The kind of tired that goes past the bones and settles into the soul. Cole set the bundle on Bishop's saddle and secured it with a strap. He stood there for a moment, looking at the road ahead, trying to find words that wouldn't come out stuttered and broken. When he spoke, his voice was low and rough. "I had a boy, a son, Thomas. He was 2 years old when I left for the war. When I came home, my wife was gone. Took my boy with her, ran off with a banker in Portland." He paused. "I don't know where my son is. I don't know if he's safe. I don't know if someone's hurting him. I think about that every single day." He looked at Ellie. "I can't help my boy. I don't even know where he sleeps at night. But you're standing right in front of me, and I can see exactly what's happening to you. If I ride away from this, I ain't just failing you. I'm failing him. Because somewhere, maybe, there's a man riding past my son who could help and won't." Ellie stared at him. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You stutter," she said. Cole blinked. "What?" "When you said Thomas, you stuttered on the T. And just now, you almost stuttered on somewhere. You caught it, but I heard it." Nobody heard it. Nobody ever heard it. Cole kept his sentences short, specifically so nobody would hear it. "That's why you don't talk much," Ellie said. "Not because you're the strong, silent type. Because you're afraid people will hear it." Cole felt his neck get hot. "We ain't talking about me." "No, we ain't." But something shifted in Ellie's face. The wall dropped, just an inch. "You hide it good. Most people probably think you're just quiet. Most people don't pay attention like you do. I pay attention to everything. That's how you survive." They looked at each other on that dusty road, with the sun climbing and the flies buzzing, and a borrowed horse standing between them carrying stolen laundry. Two broken people, recognizing the cracks in each other. "I'll walk with you to the camp," Ellie said finally. "But after that, you stay away from Ida's house. You hear me? You come near that property again, and I'll be the one who pays for it. Deal." They walked. Ellie kept 3 feet of distance between them at all times, like she'd measured it. Cole led Bishop by the reins and didn't try to close the gap. They were quiet for a while, and then Ellie spoke. "You said your wife ran off. What did you do?" "I found the banker. Broke his arm in 2 places." "Did it help?" "Not even a little." "Did you find your son?" "No. Abigail disappeared. Changed her name, probably. Could be anywhere from California to New York." "How old would he be now?" 12. 13 in October. Cole's throat tightened. "He don't even remember me. He was too young." "He might," Ellie said softly. "Children remember more than people think. I remember my pa's hands. He had thick fingers. Gentle, though. He used to hold my hand when we walked to the creek. I was 4 when he married Ida. I can still feel his hand." "Your pa. Hank says he was a good man. Best man who ever lived." No hesitation, no wobble in her voice, just iron certainty. He didn't know what Ida was. Nobody did. She played the part, loving wife, kind stepmother. It wasn't until after the mine took him that she dropped the mask. First week after the funeral, she moved me out of my bedroom and into the cellar. Said my room was wasted on me. She sold my mother's quilt, my father's watch, everything. And the pig trough? Ellie was quiet for 10 steps, 12, 15. That started the first winter. I burned a pot of beans. She dragged me out to the pen by my hair and pushed my face into the slop. Held me there until I nearly blacked out. When she pulled me up, she said, "That's where you eat from now on." She didn't mean it literally. It was a punishment. But she liked it. She liked watching me choke. So she did it again. And again. Now it's just routine. Tuesday I burn something, or track mud, or look at her wrong. Wednesday my face is in the trough. Cole's hands were shaking. He gripped Bishop's reins tighter to stop it. "I'm getting you out," he said. "You can't." "I will." "How?" Ellie stopped walking and faced him. "You just told me your plan for dealing with the banker was breaking his arm, and it didn't work. What's your plan for dealing with Ida? You gonna break her arm? Hit a woman? That'll get you hanged. You gonna kidnap me? That's a felony, and Ida's got guardianship papers. You'd be a wanted man in 2 counties. You gonna buy me? With what? Cattle money? She won't sell. I'm worth more to her working than any amount you could pay." Every word she said was true. Cole knew it, she knew it. The logic was airtight and devastating. "Then I'll find another way," Cole said. "There is no other way. I've thought about it every night for 3 years. I've thought about running. She'd send the law after me. I've thought about telling the Reverend. He's bought and paid for. I've thought about hurting her back. She'd kill me. I'm not being dramatic. She keeps a pistol in her nightstand. She told me once, 'If you ever raise a hand to me, I'll put a bullet in you and tell the marshal you attacked me in a fit.' And they'd believe her. They'd believe her over me because I'm the crazy girl, and she's the respectable widow." Ellie's voice had gone flat, mechanical. She'd rehearsed this arithmetic of hopelessness so many times, it had lost its sharp edges. "So stop," Ellie said. "Stop trying. Go sell your cattle. Go find your son. You've got your own broken life to fix." They reached the mining camp. Ellie took the linens from Bishop's saddle and walked toward the foreman's cabin without looking back. Cole stood in the road. Bishop snorted and tossed his head. "I know," Cole said to the horse. "I know." He should ride south, sell the cattle, take the money and head west. Find Thomas. That was the right thing to do, the sensible thing. He turned Bishop south. He rode a 1/4 mile. Then he stopped, because he heard his father's voice. William Masterson, dead 15 years, a rancher from San Antonio who never hit a woman and never walked past a wrong he could right. His father used to say, "A man who rides past someone drowning because he's got somewhere to be ain't a man. He's a coward on a horse." Cole turned Bishop around and rode back toward town. He found Hank Morrow restocking bottles behind the bar. "I need to know everything about Reverend Whitley," Cole said. "Every secret, every debt, every sin he's hiding behind that collar." Hank set down a bottle of rye and looked at Cole with something between fear and hope. "You're not leaving, are you?" "No, sir, I am not." Hank reached under the bar and pulled out a bottle. Not the cheap stuff he served to minors, the good stuff. He poured 2 glasses. "Whitley," Hank said slowly, "has a problem. The kind of problem that wears a red dress and works at the dance hall in Silver Falls, 40 miles east. Her name is Lucille. He visits her the first Saturday of every month. Tells his wife he's doing missionary outreach. Who else knows? Me, the stagecoach driver, and now you." Cole drank the whiskey. "What else?" The church building fund. Ida donates $5 a month. The fund is supposed to be for a new roof. That roof has been coming for 2 years. I've seen Whitley buying new suits in Helena. Fine wool, gold watch chain. That ain't a preacher's salary. He's stealing from his own church fund. He's skimming, and Ida knows. That's why he does whatever she says. She owns him. Cole set the glass down. Something was forming in his mind. Not a plan exactly, more like the skeleton of one, the bones without the muscle.
Hank, if Deputy Marshal Tate were to show up in this town and find evidence that the Reverend was embezzling church funds and that Ida Pruitt was using that leverage to cover up the abuse of a minor in her care, what would happen? Hank's eyes widened. Tate's honest. If he had proof, real proof, he'd act on it. He'd have to. It'd be a territorial matter. Then I need Tate here, and I need proof. Tate doesn't come on command, Masterson. Then I'll go get him. Hank grabbed his arm again. That's Fort Ellis. 4 days' ride, round trip. You leave for 4 days, Ellie's alone with Ida. After what happened yesterday, after Ida saw you at the fence, she's going to be watching that girl like a hawk. She might even... He stopped. Say it. She might lock her in the cellar again. Or worse. Cole felt the ground shifting under him. Every move he made put Ellie in danger. Going was dangerous. Staying was dangerous. Doing nothing was the most dangerous of all. I need someone watching that house while I'm gone, Cole said. Someone Ida wouldn't suspect. There ain't nobody. I told you. The whole town is her cage. Cole stared at the bar. Then he looked up. What about Mrs. Fenton? Hank frowned. Ruth Fenton? She's the most timid woman in Montana. She can't even look Ellie in the eye. She can't look her in the eye because she's ashamed. I've seen that look. She knows what's happening. She feels guilty. Guilty people are useful, Hank. They're desperate to make it right. They just need someone to show them how. And if she says no, then I'll ask someone else. I'll ask the next person and the next, until I find one soul in this God-forsaken town who gives a damn about a 19-year-old girl with bruises on her arms and pig slop in her hair. Hank sat down heavily on his stool. He looked old, older than his 60 years. You know, Hank said quietly, I've been waiting 3 years for someone like you to ride through here. I prayed for it. Literally got on my knees in my room above this saloon and asked God to send somebody. And now you're here, and I'm terrified, because if this goes wrong, Ida won't just hurt Ellie. She'll destroy her. She'll move her somewhere we can't find. She's threatened it before, said she'd send Ellie to a workhouse in Chicago, a place for troubled girls. You know what those places are, Masterson? I know what they are. Then you know the stakes. Cole put his hat on. I know the stakes. I also know what happens if we do nothing. She stays in that house until she's 21, if she makes it that long. 2 more years of the trough, 2 more years of the spoon, 2 more years of sleeping in a cellar while the woman who's supposed to care for her sells her labor for pennies and beats her for breathing. He walked to the door. The sunlight hit his face and lit up the scar. That ain't living, Hank. That's a slow execution. And I ain't gonna watch it happen. He stepped outside and nearly collided with a woman. Small, round, soft-faced, clutching a basket of eggs. Mrs. Ruth Fenton. She looked up at him with wide, startled eyes. Then she looked past him, into the saloon, at Hank, then back at Cole. I heard you, she whispered. Her chin was trembling. I was coming to drop off Hank's eggs. I heard everything through the window. Cole studied her face. He saw the guilt Hank had talked about, years of it, stacked up like unpaid debts, pressing down on this woman's round shoulders.
Mrs. Fenton.
I see the bruises, Ruth Fenton said, her voice cracking. Every Tuesday when she brings my linens, I see them. On her arms, on her neck, once on her face, a handprint clear as day. And I take the laundry and I pay 3 pennies and I close the door.
Tears spilled down her cheeks.
I close the door, Mr. Masterson, every single time. Because I'm a coward, because Ida scares me, because it's easier to pretend.
Mrs. Fenton.
I can't pretend anymore. She gripped the egg basket so hard her knuckles turned white. Tell me what you need me to do.
Cole looked at this small, frightened woman, standing in the dust with tears on her face and eggs in her hands, and he felt something crack open in his chest. Not hope. He didn't trust hope. But something close. Something with teeth. I need you to watch Ida's house, Cole said. I'll be gone 4 days. If Ida hurts Ellie, if she locks her in the cellar, if she touches her, I need you to document it. Write it down. Dates, times, what you saw. Can you do that?
Yes.
And if it gets bad, if you think Ellie's life is in danger, you go to Hank. Hank will know what to do. Ruth Fenton straightened her spine. It wasn't much, but it was something.
3 years, she said. I've been paying that girl 3 pennies for 6 hours of work. 3 years of closing my door.
She wiped her face.
No more.
She walked past Cole into the saloon. He heard her voice inside, steady now, talking to Hank, making plans, small plans, fragile plans, but plans. Cole mounted Bishop and pointed him north toward Fort Ellis. 4 days. He had 4 days to find a lawman, build a case, and get back before Ida Pruitt figured out what was happening. 4 days to save a girl who'd told him flat out she couldn't be saved. Cole kicked Bishop into a canter and rode hard into the afternoon heat. Behind him, in a white house at the edge of town, Ellie Dawson sat in the cellar darkness with her arms wrapped around her knees. Ida had locked the door an hour ago. No food, no water, no light.
2 more years,
Ellie whispered to herself. The words she repeated every night like a prayer that was slowly losing its power. But tonight, another voice crept in. A rough, stuttering voice that said things no one in Redstone Gulch had ever said to her. I'm getting you out.
Ellie pressed her forehead against her knees and, for the first time in 3 years, allowed herself to think the most dangerous thought a prisoner can think. What if he means it?
Cole rode Bishop until the horse's sides were foaming. He made Fort Ellis in 2 days instead of 4 by cutting through the Gallatin Pass, a route that most men avoided because it was narrow, treacherous, and crawling with rattlesnakes. Cole didn't care about the snakes. He cared about time. Fort Ellis was a mud brick garrison sitting on a flat plain, surrounded by nothing but dry grass and the smell of horse dung. Cole dismounted at the gate and asked for Deputy Marshal Eugene Tate. The corporal on duty shook his head. Tate rode out 3 days ago. Cattle rustling case up near Bozeman. Won't be back for a week, maybe 2. Cole grabbed the corporal's sleeve. Where in Bozeman? Easy, mister. I don't know exactly. Try the Grand Hotel. He takes his meals there when he's working a case. Cole was back on Bishop before the corporal finished talking. Bozeman was another day's ride northeast. He'd already been gone 2 days. That left Ellie alone with Ida for at least 2 more. Maybe 3. He pushed Bishop hard. Too hard. Halfway to Bozeman, the roan pulled up lame, a stone bruise on his left fore. Cole cursed, dismounted, and walked the last 6 miles, leaving Bishop by the reins, his boots raising dust on the empty road. He found Tate at the Grand Hotel, eating a steak at a corner table. Eugene Tate was not what Cole expected. He was a lean man in his 40s with a neatly trimmed mustache, wire-rimmed spectacles, and the quiet, careful manner of a school teacher. His marshal's badge was pinned to a plain brown vest. No flash, no swagger, just a man who read the law like scripture and applied it the same way, without exception. Marshal Tate. Tate looked up from his steak. He chewed, swallowed, wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin. I don't know you. Cole Masterson, cattle drover out of Cheyenne. I need to talk to you about a situation in Redstone Gulch. Sit down. Cole sat. He talked for 20 minutes without stopping. He told Tate about Ellie, about the bruises, the pig trough, the cellar, about Ida's guardianship papers and her grip on the town, about Reverend Whitley and the church fund and the woman in Silver Falls, about Hank Morrow's letters that were never answered. Tate listened without interrupting. He didn't touch his steak again. When Cole finished, Tate took off his spectacles and cleaned them with a napkin. I've been to Redstone Gulch twice, Tate said. Met Ida Pruitt. Met the girl. And Ida served me coffee and sugar cookies and told me the girl was slow in the head. Showed me a room she said was Ellie's. Clean bed, curtains on the window, a rag doll on the pillow. The girl sat there quiet as a church mouse and said, "Yes, ma'am," to everything Ida told her. I had no reason to doubt it. She was performing. Ida coached her. If Ellie said the wrong thing, she'd get beaten after you left. Tate put his spectacles back on. I believe you, Masterson. I've seen this before. Women like Ida Pruitt build a cage so tight that the prisoner does half the warden's job. The girl protects her abuser because the alternative is worse. But belief ain't evidence. I can't ride into Redstone Gulch on the word of a cattle drover and strip a legal guardian of her custody. I need testimony. I need documentation. I need a witness who isn't the victim. I've got one. Ruth Fenton. She's been watching the house while I'm gone. She's writing down everything she sees. Tate studied Cole's face. You've been gone 3 days already. You know what's probably happening to that girl right now? That's why I'm asking you to come now. Tonight. My horse is fresh. Yours isn't. That roan of yours won't make 10 miles. Then lend me one. Tate shook his head. You ride back alone, you've got nothing. You've got a lame horse and good intentions. I'll come with you. We leave at first light. I'll requisition a mount for you from the livery here. We ride hard. We can make Redstone Gulch by tomorrow night. First light, Cole repeated. His hands were clenched under the table. Every hour felt like a knife turning. Masterson, Tate leaned forward. There's something I need to tell you before we go any further. When I was in Redstone Gulch last time, Ida mentioned a drover who'd been bothering her stepdaughter. She said the man was dangerous, said he had a criminal past. She asked me to look into it. Cole's blood went cold. I ran the name, Tate said. Cole Masterson, Texas. There's a warrant. Aggravated assault. You broke a man's arm in Fort Worth. A banker named Arthur Selby, 1876. He stole my wife and my son. I don't doubt it, but a warrant's a warrant. If I ride into Redstone Gulch with you, Ida will use that. She'll say you're a violent criminal who fixated on her stepdaughter. She'll say she was trying to protect the girl from you, and she'll have the paper to back it up. Cole felt the ground crumbling beneath him. Ida had already made her move. She'd already laid the trap. She'd poisoned the well before he even knew it existed. So, what do I do? You let me handle it. You ride in with me, but you stay out of it. You don't go near Ida's property. You don't go near the girl. You let me do the investigation. If Mrs. Fenton has documentation, if I can get the girl alone and get her to talk, really talk, then I can act. But if you're anywhere near this, Ida will make it about you instead of about her. You understand? I understand. Do you? Because the look on your face tells me you're about 3 inches from riding ahead of me and putting your fist through that woman's front door. I said I understand. Good. Tate put his hat on. First light. Be at the livery. And Masterson. That warrant in Texas. I'm choosing not to act on it right now because I've got bigger concerns. But when this is over, you and I are going to have a conversation about Arthur Selby's arm. Fair enough. Cole didn't sleep that night either. He sat on the floor of the hotel hallway because he couldn't afford a room. And he counted the hours like a man counting down to a hanging. At first light, they rode. Back in Redstone Gulch, Ellie was surviving. That was the word she used in her own head. Not living. Surviving. Ida had let her out of the cellar after 2 days. Not out of mercy. The pigs needed feeding, and the laundry was piling up. Ida couldn't do the work herself. That was the cruel arithmetic that kept Ellie alive. She was too valuable to kill, and too powerless to escape. But something had changed in Ida. Cole's visit had rattled her. The fact that a stranger had noticed, had seen the bruises, had said it out loud, had cracked the illusion Ida had spent 3 years building. And Ida responded to cracks the way she responded to everything, with violence. The beatings got worse. Not the trough. Ida saved that for when Ellie earned it. But the spoon came out every evening now, for small things, imaginary things, a wrinkle in the tablecloth, a glass not dried properly, a look that Ida interpreted as defiance. "You think that cowboy is coming back for you?" Ida said on the 3rd night, standing over Ellie while Ellie scrubbed the kitchen floor on her hands and knees. "You think he cares about you?" "No, ma'am." "You're right, he don't. Men like that use girls like you and throw them away. Your own father couldn't even keep himself alive long enough to protect you. What makes you think a stranger would do better?" "Nothing, ma'am." "Look at me when I'm talking." Ellie looked up. Ida's face was calm, almost pleasant. That was when she was most dangerous. "That man won't set foot in this town again. I wrote to the marshal about him. He's got a record, a violent record. If he comes back, he'll be arrested. And if I find out you had anything to do with him coming here, if I find out you asked for help, or spoke to him privately, or gave him any reason to interfere in my household, I will send you to the Whitmore Institute in Chicago. You know what that is? A workhouse, ma'am. A workhouse for defective girls. Girls who are dangerous. Girls who set fires and hurt animals and can't be trusted in decent society. You'd fit right in." Ida crouched down until her face was level with Ellie's. "They don't have cellars at Whitmore's, Ellie. They have chains. Real ones. Iron. Around the ankles. And they don't let you out for pig feeding." "Yes, ma'am." "Say thank you." "Thank you, ma'am." Ida stood up and walked to her bedroom. The door closed. The lock turned. Ellie sat on the wet kitchen floor, the scrub brush in her hand, and stared at the wall. Her mind was a locked room with no windows. Every door she tried was bolted from the outside. Run! They'd catch her. Fight! Ida had the pistol. Tell someone. Nobody believed her. Wait for Cole. Ida had already poisoned that well. She was trapped. Completely. Totally. And then she heard a tap on the kitchen window. She froze. The tap came again. Light. Careful. A fingernail against glass. Ellie crept to the window and peered through the crack in the curtain. Ruth Fenton stood outside in the darkness, her round face pale and frightened, clutching a folded piece of paper.
Ellie's hands trembled as she eased the window open an inch. "Mrs. Fenton? What are you—" "Shh." Ruth's voice was barely a breath. "Is she asleep? She locked her door. Listen to me, child. I don't have long. I've been watching. I've been writing things down. Everything I've seen this week. The bruises on your arms Tuesday. The way you limped Wednesday. The sound I heard Thursday night through my window." "What sound?" Ruth's chin quivered. "You were screaming, Ellie. I live 3 houses away, and I heard you screaming." Ellie's jaw tightened. She didn't remember screaming. She must have blacked out again. Ida sometimes hit the back of her head, and the world went white. And when she came to, time had passed, and her throat was raw. "The cowboy," Ruth whispered. "Mr. Masterson. He went to find the marshal. He's coming back." Something slammed inside Ellie's chest. Not hope, something sharper. Terror. "No, no, you can't bring the marshal here. Ida will—" "She wrote to the marshal about Cole. She said he's dangerous. She set a trap." "I know. Mr. Masterson knew she would. That's why he went himself, to tell the marshal the truth before Ida's letter got there." Ellie gripped the windowsill. If the marshal comes, and Ida puts on her show, the clean house, the good dress, the sweet voice, he'll believe her. He always believes her. Not this time. Ruth held up the folded paper. "I've written 6 pages. Dates, times, what I saw, what I heard, and there's more." "More?" Ruth's voice dropped even lower. "I talked to the foreman's wife at North Camp, Margaret Holt. She told me something she's never told anyone. 2 years ago, Ida came to her asking about arsenic. Said she had a rat problem. Margaret sold her a tin, but Ellie, there ain't no rats at Ida's house. I've been inside. I've delivered eggs to that kitchen for 3 years, not one rat." The blood drained from Ellie's face. "Arsenic. Small doses, over time. It looks like sickness, weakness. The shaking in your hands, Ellie, the dizzy spells, the way your hair thins out at the temples. Those ain't just from being hit." Ellie looked down at her hands. Shaking. Always shaking. She'd thought it was fear. She'd thought it was nerves. "She's poisoning me," Ellie whispered. "I don't know for certain, but I wrote it down, and the marshal will test for it. He can." Ellie's legs gave out. She slid down the wall to the floor, sitting beneath the open window. Ruth reached through and touched the top of her head. The first gentle touch Ellie had felt in days. "You hold on, child. 2 more days. That's all. Can you hold on 2 more days?" "I've been holding on for 3 years, Mrs. Fenton." "Then hold on a little more. He's coming." Ruth disappeared into the darkness. Ellie closed the window. She sat on the kitchen floor with her arms wrapped around her knees, the same position she held in the cellar, the same position she held every night. But tonight, the voice in her head wasn't saying 2 more years. It was saying 2 more days. And beneath that, darker, colder, she's been poisoning me. She wasn't going to let me reach 21. She was going to kill me slowly, and everyone would say, "Poor Ida, she tried so hard with that troubled girl." The rage that Cole had seen in her eyes, that buried, caged fury, rose up through Ellie's body like groundwater breaking through cracked earth. Her hands stopped shaking. Her jaw unclenched. Her eyes went dry and hard. She wasn't scared anymore. She was angry. Cole and Tate rode into Redstone Gulch at sundown the next day. Cole's borrowed horse was blowing hard, and his own body ached from 40 hours of near-continuous riding. But he didn't feel it. He couldn't feel anything except the hammering urgency in his chest. They went straight to Hank's saloon. Ruth Fenton was already there, sitting at the corner table with a stack of handwritten pages and a cup of tea she hadn't touched. Hank stood behind the bar, arms crossed, looking like a man bracing for a storm. Tate read Ruth's pages in silence, all 6 of them. He read them twice. Then he set them down and looked at Ruth. The arsenic. You're certain about this? I'm certain Margaret Holt sold Ida a tin of arsenic 2 years ago. I'm certain there are no rats at that house. And I'm certain that girl has been getting weaker every month in ways that don't match her injuries. You can draw your own conclusions, Marshal. Tate turned to Cole. You stay here. Like hell. Masterson, I told you in Bozeman, if you're anywhere near this, I'll stay outside. I won't go on the property. But I'll be close enough that if something goes wrong, I'm there. Tate studied him. Outside. You don't speak, you don't move, you don't exist. Clear? Clear. They walked through town, Tate in front, Ruth beside him, Cole 20 paces behind. The sun was gone now. A few miners sat on porches, watching. Word traveled fast in the small town. By the time they reached Ida's white house, Ellie was already standing in the front yard, a basket of wet laundry in her arms. She saw Tate first. Her face went blank. The prisoner's mask, the one Cole had seen the first day. Then she saw Ruth. Her eyes widened just a fraction. Then she saw Cole, hanging back by the road, and something crossed her face that he couldn't read. Tate removed his hat. Miss Dawson, I'm Deputy Marshal Eugene Tate. We've met before. Yes, sir. Is Mrs. Pruitt home? Yes, sir. She's inside. I'd like to speak with her, and then I'd like to speak with you, privately. The screen door opened. Ida stepped onto the porch. She was wearing her Sunday dress, the blue one with the white collar. Hair pinned, hands clasped. The mask was already on. Marshal Tate, what a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting you until fall. Her voice was warm honey. She smiled at Ruth. And Ruth, dear, what brings you? Tate didn't smile back. Mrs. Pruitt, I have some questions regarding the welfare of your stepdaughter. May I come inside? Of course, of course. Ellie, put on the kettle. They went inside. Cole stayed by the road, his hands in his pockets, his heart slamming against his ribs. 15 minutes passed. 20. Cole could hear voices through the open window, but not words. He paced. Bishop, recovered now, tied at the livery, wasn't here to talk to. He was alone with his thoughts, and his thoughts were wolves. Then Ida's voice, sharp and loud, cut through the evening air. That is a lie! Ruth Fenton, you are a liar and a gossip, and I will have you thrown out of this town. Ruth's voice, shaking but steady. I saw the bruises, Ida. I have dates. I have descriptions. The girl is clumsy. She falls. She's always been clumsy. Ask anyone. Tate's voice, calm as still water. Mrs. Pruitt, I'd like to speak with Ellie alone now. Absolutely not. She's my ward. You have no right. Ma'am, I have the right and the authority under territorial law to interview a minor in a welfare investigation. You can cooperate, or I can take the girl to Fort Ellis and conduct the interview there. Your choice. Silence. A long, awful silence. Then Ida's voice, sweet again, smooth again. Of course, Marshal. Ellie, honey, go with the nice Marshal. Tell him the truth. You've got nothing to hide. Cole heard a door open, footsteps on the porch. Tate walked Ellie around the side of the house, out of earshot. 5 minutes. 10. Cole couldn't hear what they were saying. He could only see them. Tate leaning against the fence, arms folded, listening.
Ellie standing rigid, arms at her sides. She wasn't talking. Her mouth was shut. The mask was on. She wasn't going to say it. 3 years of conditioning. 3 years of don't tell, don't speak, don't ask for help. Ida's voice was louder than Tate's badge, louder than Ruth's pages, louder than everything. Cole couldn't stand it. He broke his promise. He walked onto the property. Tate saw him and straightened.
Masterson, I told you. Ellie. Cole stopped 10 feet away, the same distance he'd kept on the road.
You don't have to protect her anymore. Ellie looked at him. Her face was stone. I don't know what you're talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You told me on that road. You told me your plan was to survive 2 more years. But Mrs. Fenton told you something, didn't she? About the arsenic. Tate's head snapped toward Cole. What arsenic? Ask her, Cole said, pointing at Ellie. Ask her if she knew. Ellie's mask cracked. Just a millimeter. Just enough for Cole to see the terror underneath. She'll send me to Whitmore's, Ellie whispered. The workhouse. She said she would. Chains on the ankles. She said... She can't send you anywhere if she's in custody, Tate said, his voice sharpening now. Miss Dawson, if what I'm hearing about arsenic is true, this isn't a welfare case anymore. This is attempted murder. But I need you to tell me.
I need to hear it from you. Ellie's hands were shaking again. The old tremor. The one she thought was fear, but might have been poison working its way through her bones for 2 years. I can't, she whispered. You don't understand. If I say it and you leave, if you don't take her away, she'll kill me. Not slow, fast. She'll use the pistol. She told me. I'm not leaving, Tate said. I'm not leaving this property without resolution. You left before. Twice. You ate her cookies and you left. The words hit Tate like a slap. He took off his spectacles and rubbed his eyes. When he put them back on, his face had changed. I did, he said, and I am sorry for that. I failed you, Miss Dawson. But I am standing here now, and I am asking you to give me the chance to make it right. Ellie looked at Tate. She looked at Cole. She looked at the house where Ida was probably standing at the window, watching, calculating, preparing her next move. And then something broke open inside Ellie Dawson. Not gently, not like a flower blooming, like a dam splitting, like ice cracking on a river in spring, violent and loud and unstoppable. She dips my food, Ellie said. Her voice was shaking so hard the words came out in pieces. Every night. She makes my plate separate from hers. She puts something in the gravy. I tasted it once. Bitter, metallic. I asked her what it was, and she hit me with the spoon and said I was imagining things. My hair's been falling out. My hands won't stop shaking. I'm dizzy every morning. I throw up blood sometimes. She tells me I'm sickly. She tells everyone I'm sickly. But I wasn't sick before Pa died. I was strong. I used to carry firewood. I used to run. Now I can barely walk to town without stopping twice. The words poured out of her like water from a broken well. Years of silence, cracked wide open. She locked me in the cellar for 2 weeks last winter. No light. A bucket for a toilet. She slid bread under the door every other day. She told the town I had scarlet fever. When she let me out, my legs wouldn't work for 3 days. The pig trough, Tate said quietly. Every week. Sometimes twice. She holds my head under until I stop fighting. Then she pulls me up and makes me say thank you. She makes me say, thank you, Mama. And I ain't her daughter. I ain't. My mama is dead, and she was good, and Ida Pruitt is not my mother.
Ellie was crying now. Not the controlled, swallowed tears she'd perfected over 3 years. Real tears. Ugly, choking, full-body sobs that bent her double. Cole stepped forward. He didn't touch her. He stood close enough that she could feel him there. Steady, solid, not going anywhere. "The bruises," Ellie gasped between sobs. "The wooden spoon. The poker. The back of her hand. My ribs. She kicked me last Thursday. I heard something crack. It hurts to breathe. It hurts to—" The screen door slammed open. Ida Pruitt stood on the porch. The Sunday dress was still perfect. The hair was still pinned. But the mask was gone. Underneath was something cold and pale and furious. "Ellie Mae Dawson," Ida said. "You stop talking right now." Ellie's sobs cut off like someone had closed a valve. Her body went rigid. The conditioning, 3 years of it, snapped into place like shackles. "Mrs. Pruitt," Tate started. "That girl is a liar, Marshall. A pathological, dangerous liar. I have cared for her since she was 10 years old. I have fed her, clothed her, kept a roof over her head. She repays me with fantasies and accusations because she wants attention. She's disturbed. Ask Reverend Whitley. He'll tell you." "I intend to ask Reverend Whitley a great many things," Tate said, "including about the church building fund." For the first time, a crack appeared in Ida's armor, a tiny fissure around the eyes. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, Mrs. Pruitt. I'm informing you that I'm opening a formal investigation into the welfare of Eleanor Dawson and into the financial management of the Redstone Gulch Community Church Fund. You are not to leave this town. You are not to approach or communicate with your stepdaughter until the investigation is complete. Miss Dawson will be placed in temporary custody." "Whose custody?" Ida's voice was a blade. "Mine," Ruth Fenton said from the porch doorway. She'd come through the house. She was trembling head to toe, but she was standing in Ida's doorway, and she was not moving. Ida looked at Ruth the way a snake looks at a mouse that has suddenly grown teeth. "Ruth, dear, you don't want to do this." "I've wanted to do this for 3 years. I just didn't have the spine." Ruth's voice cracked, but she kept going. "I watched her limp to my house every Tuesday. I saw the handprint on her face. I paid her 3 pennies and closed my door. I am done closing my door, Ida." "You'll regret this." "I already regret everything. This is the first thing I won't regret." Tate stepped between them. "Mrs. Pruitt, I need you to go inside your house and stay there. I'll be sending someone to collect Miss Dawson's belongings." "She doesn't have belongings," Ida spat. "Everything in this house is mine. She owns nothing." "I own my name," Ellie said. Everyone turned. Ellie straightened up. Her face was wrecked, red, swollen, tear-streaked. But her eyes were clear, and her voice, when she spoke again, didn't shake. "I own my name. Eleanor Ruth Dawson. My mama named me before she died. My papa gave me his name when he held me the first time. You don't own that. You never did." She looked at Ida, straight at her, eye to eye, the first time in 3 years. "And I own my voice. You beat it out of me, but it came back. I'm standing here talking, and you can't stop me. Not with a spoon, not with a cellar, not with a trough. I'm talking, and people are listening, and there's nothing you can do about it." Ida's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Ellie took a step toward her, then another. She stopped 3 feet from the woman who had beaten her, starved her, humiliated her, and poisoned her for 3 years. "You told me once I'd come crawling back.
You said I didn't know how to live without someone hitting me. You were wrong. I don't know how to live yet, but I'm going to learn. And I'm going to learn as far away from you as I can get." Ellie turned her back on Ida Pruitt. She walked down the porch steps. She walked past Tate, past Ruth, past the yard where the pig trough sat in the darkness like an open grave. She walked to Cole. He was standing by the fence, hat in his hands, his scarred face unreadable in the dying light. He didn't speak. He didn't reach for her. Ellie stopped in front of him and looked up. "You came back," she said. "I told you I would." The stutter. He didn't try to hide it. "Everybody tells me things. Nobody means them." "I mean them." Ellie stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and took the hat from his hands. She put it on her own head. It was far too big. It slid down over her eyes. She pushed it back with one finger. "I'm borrowing this," she said. "Mine got ruined in the pig trough." Cole Masterson, a man who had not laughed in 3 years, who had broken a banker's arm without smiling, who spoke to his horse more than he spoke to people, laughed. It was short and rough, and it cracked in the middle like it surprised even him. Behind them, Ida's front door slammed shut so hard the windows rattled. Ellie flinched at the sound. Old reflex, deep in the bone. But she didn't turn around. She was done turning around. Ruth Fenton's house smelled like flour and dried lavender. Ellie stood in the middle of the parlor, Cole's hat still on her head, and didn't know what to do with her hands. She kept clasping them, unclasping them, wiping them on her dress like she was still scrubbing something that wouldn't come clean. "Sit down, child," Ruth said, pulling out a kitchen chair. "I'll fix you something to eat." "I'm not hungry, ma'am." "When's the last time you ate?" Ellie thought about it. She couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before? The days in the cellar blurred together. "Sit down," Ruth said again, softer this time. "And stop calling me ma'am. My name is Ruth." Ellie sat. Her body was rigid, her spine not touching the back of the chair. She kept her eyes on the door, listening, waiting for boots on the porch, waiting for Ida's voice, waiting for the punishment that always came when she let her guard down. Ruth set a plate in front of her. Bread, butter, cold ham, a slice of apple pie. Real food. A real portion. Not scraps. Ellie stared at the plate. Her throat closed up. "What's wrong?" Ruth asked. "Nothing. I just—" Ellie pressed her fist against her mouth. "She always put something in my food. The gravy, sometimes the water. I could taste it. Bitter, like pennies. I stopped eating the gravy 6 months ago. I'd dump it when she wasn't looking. I think that's why I'm still alive." Ruth sat down hard, like the air had been punched out of her. "Lord in heaven." "I ain't saying your food's poison, Mrs. Ruth. I'm saying my hands won't pick up the fork. My body won't let me. It's been so long since I ate something I trusted that I don't—" She trailed off. "I'm sorry." Ruth reached across the table, picked up the slice of ham with her own fingers, tore it in half, and ate one piece. She picked up the bread, tore it, ate half. She cut the pie and took a bite. Then she pushed the plate back toward Ellie. "There, I ate it first. If it's poisoned, I'll die right alongside you." Ellie looked at this round, trembling woman who had spent 3 years closing her door and was now tearing her own food in half to prove it was safe. Something cracked in Ellie's chest. She picked up the bread and bit into it. She ate everything on the plate. Then she ate a second helping. Then she put her head on the table and sobbed so hard her whole body convulsed. And Ruth Fenton sat beside her and rubbed her back and didn't say a single word, because there were no words for a girl
who had forgotten what safe food tasted like. Cole was outside. He sat on Ruth's porch step, rolling a cigarette he wouldn't light, watching the darkened road. Ida's house was 3 streets away, but it might as well have been 3 feet. He could feel it, the pull of unfinished business. Hank Morrow came up the road carrying a shotgun and a bottle. "Figured you'd be here," Hank said. He sat down next to Cole and handed him the bottle. "Tate's at the hotel, writing up his report." He sent a rider to Fort Ellis, requesting a military escort to take Ida to Helena for trial. "How long?" 4 days, maybe 5. "She'll run." "She might." Tate posted 2 minors at her doors. Paid them out of his own pocket. "She ain't going nowhere tonight." Hank took the bottle back and drank. "How's the girl?" "Eating." "That's something." They sat in silence. The kind of silence that exists between men who have seen something ugly and are trying to figure out what to do with it. "Hank, the arsenic. If Ellie stopped eating the gravy 6 months ago, and she's still shaking, still sick, what does that mean?" Hank's face was grim. "Means it's already in her system. Been building up for a 1.5 years before she caught on. Arsenic don't leave easy. It sits in the bones, the hair, the organs. She needs a doctor, Cole. A real one. Not a frontier sawbones." "Nearest real doctor?" "Helena. Maybe Butte." "How do I get her there?" "You don't. Not yet. Tate won't let her leave town until she's given a formal deposition. And there's another problem." Hank lowered his voice. "Your warrant." Cole's jaw tightened. "Tate said he'd deal with it after." "After is coming fast. Ida's already talking. She sent a boy to Reverend Whitley's house an hour ago. Whitley came to the hotel and spent 20 minutes in Tate's room. I don't know what was said, but I know Whitley. He's going to fight for Ida, because if Ida falls, he falls. And the easiest way to discredit this whole thing is to discredit you. I didn't ask Ellie to lie for me. I didn't. I know that. You know that. But in a courtroom, Ida's lawyer is going to say a wanted criminal from Texas rode into town, seduced a vulnerable girl, and manufactured abuse allegations to steal her away from her legal guardian. And with that warrant hanging over your head, it'll stick." Cole felt sick. Every move he made tangled the rope tighter. He'd come here to cut Ellie free, and all he'd done was hand Ida a weapon. "What if I leave?" Cole said. The words tasted like ash. "If I'm not here, they can't make it about me. Tate's got Ruth's testimony. He's got Ellie's statement. He doesn't need me." "You'd leave? After all this?" "If staying hurts her, yes." Hank looked at him for a long time. "You love that girl, don't you?" Cole didn't answer. He put the unlit cigarette between his lips, struck a match, and watched the flame. "I barely know her," he said finally. "That ain't what I asked." Cole shook out the match. "It doesn't matter what I feel. What matters is what keeps her safe." The door behind them opened. Ellie stood in the doorway, Ruth's shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her jaw was set. She'd heard them talking. Cole could tell by the way she looked at him, like he'd pulled a knife on her. "You're leaving," she said. Not a question. "Ellie, you're going to ride away. You're going to tell yourself it's noble. It's for my protection. And I'll be standing here, watching your back disappear, just like everyone else who ever said they'd stay." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like? Explain it to me, Cole. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like a man running away." Cole stood up. He turned to face her. The match was still smoking between his fingers. "Ida is going to use me to destroy your case. She's going to point at my warrant and say I'm the villain. If I'm here, she wins. If I leave, Tate can handle this clean. And what happens to the warrant? I'll deal with it. Deal with it how? You'll ride back to Texas and turn yourself in for breaking the arm of the man who stole your family? That's not dealing with it. That's surrendering. Sometimes surrendering is the smart play. And sometimes it's just giving up dressed in pretty clothes. Ellie stepped onto the porch.
She was shaking. From the arsenic, from the emotion, from the cool night air. He couldn't tell. You told me on that road that you couldn't help your son, that you didn't know where he was, that I was standing right in front of you and you could see what was happening. Remember? I remember. So I'm standing right in front of you again, and I'm telling you, if you ride away from this, you're not protecting me. You're protecting yourself. You're doing what you always do. You hit the banker and ran. You lost your wife and ran. You found your boy was gone, and you rode cattle instead of looking for him. You run, Cole. That's what you do. The words hit him like bullets, each one finding a soft spot he'd been guarding for years. He opened his mouth, and nothing came out. The stutter locked his throat like a fist. I'm not. You're stuttering because I'm right. You're right about everything except one thing. Cole's voice was raw, stripped of all the careful control he kept around it. I ain't running from you. I'm scared of what happens to you if I stay. I've been scared every day for 3 years. You don't see me running. That's because you didn't have anywhere to run. I don't have anywhere to run now either, but I've got a choice, and I'm choosing to stand here and fight. The question is whether you're going to stand here with me or ride off into the sunset like every dime novel cowboy who shows up, saves the girl, and disappears before the hard part. Hank, sitting on the step between them, looked from one to the other like a man watching a tennis match played with dynamite. I'll go check on Tate, Hank muttered, and escaped down the road. Cole and Ellie stood alone on the porch. The night was quiet. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere a miner's wife called her children inside. You called me a coward, Cole said. I called you a runner. There's a difference. Cowards don't ride 200 miles to fetch a marshal. Runners just don't know how to stay. Cole sat down on the porch rail. He took off his hat, then remembered Ellie still had it. She was wearing it crooked, tilted too far left. He almost smiled. My father, Cole said slowly, picking each word like a man stepping through a minefield, used to say that the hardest thing a man can do isn't fight. It's stand still. It stands still when everything in you says run. Smart man. He was. Smarter than me. He stayed on his ranch through droughts, floods, and Comanches. Died in his own bed at 67. Cole paused. I ain't him. Maybe not, but you could try. The silence between them was different from the silences before. Not tense, not afraid. It was the silence of two people standing at the edge of something they couldn't name yet. If I stay, Cole said, Ida's lawyer will use me against you. Then we deal with the warrant first. How? The man I hit, Selby, he's a banker in Fort Worth. He's got money and lawyers. And you've got a reason. You've got a story. A man comes home from war and finds his wife gone, his son stolen, and the man responsible sitting in a fancy office counting money. Any judge with a heartbeat would hear that and feel something. Feeling something and dismissing a charge are two different things. I know that. Ellie leaned against the porch post. She pulled the hat lower, hiding her eyes. I can write, Cole. I know. Hank told me your pa taught you. Not just writing. I can write well. Pa had books. Before Ida sold them, I read every one. Law books, history, the Montana Territorial Code.
I read it cover to cover the winter I was locked in the cellar. Ida didn't know. She thought I was sitting in the dark going crazy. I was reading by candlelight until the candle burned out. Then I read by memory. Cole stared at her. You read the territorial code? Twice. Cole, there's a provision. Section 14 of the Montana Territorial Criminal Code. It says that an assault charge can be reduced or dismissed if the defendant can prove the assault was committed in defense of a minor child's welfare. Selby took your son. He was 2 years old. A man who takes a child from his father is endangering that child's welfare. You didn't break his arm because you were angry. You broke it because he stole your boy. Cole's mouth opened, closed. He looked at this girl, this thin, shaking, poisoned girl, who had been having her head shoved into a pig trough every week for 3 years, and she was citing territorial law. How in the hell did Ida convince anyone you were slow? He said. Because nobody ever asked me a question. They asked Ida. They always asked Ida. Ellie's voice was bitter as coffee grounds. You know what Ida's real genius is? It's not the beating. It's the story. She told everyone I was slow, dangerous, disturbed. She told them before they ever met me, so by the time they looked at me, they already knew what they were seeing. A broken, stupid girl. Nobody talks to a broken, stupid girl. Nobody asks her opinion. Nobody hands her a book. Ruth Fenton looked at you. Ruth looked at my bruises. That's different from looking at me. You're the first person who looked at me since my pa died. She paused, and actually saw someone looking back. Cole stood up from the rail. He walked to her. He stopped 1 foot away, close enough to touch. He didn't touch her. I'll stay, he said. Promise me. I promise. Say it without stuttering. He took a breath. I promise. The stutter caught on the P, and he grimaced. Damn it. That's all right. Ellie's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. I'll know you mean it more when you stutter. Means you're feeling it. The next morning hit like a fist. Tate was at Ruth's kitchen table before dawn, his face grim. He laid a telegram on the table. Read it, he said. Cole picked it up. It was from the Territorial Judge's office in Helena. Reverend Whitley had filed an emergency petition overnight, a challenge to the welfare investigation. The petition claimed that Cole Masterson, a wanted fugitive, had conspired with Hank Morrow, a known alcoholic, and Ruth Fenton, a woman of diminished mental faculties, to manufacture abuse allegations against Ida Pruitt in order to kidnap her ward for immoral purposes. The petition requested that Ellie be returned to Ida's custody immediately, pending a formal hearing. He filed this at midnight, Tate said. Rode to the telegraph office himself. The judge in Helena will rule by end of day. If he grants the petition, I'm legally required to return Ellie to that house. Ruth went white. You can't. I won't have a choice. A judge's order is a judge's order. He'll grant it, Ellie said from the doorway. She'd been listening. Of course she had. Judge Harlan Wheeler. He's the territorial judge for this district. Ida mentioned him once. Said he owed favors to the mining company. The mining company buys copper from the Redstone claim. The Redstone claim pays fees to the church. The church is Whitley. It's all connected. Tate looked at Ellie with new eyes. How do you know the judge's name? I read the territorial register when I was in the cellar. Every judge, every marshal, every district line. I didn't have anything else to do. She's right, Cole said, his voice tight. If Wheeler is in the mining company's pocket, and the mining company is connected to Whitley, the petition gets granted. It's not about law. It's about money. Then we need to move faster than Whitley, Tate said. He pulled out a chair and sat down. The arsenic is the key. If I can prove attempted murder, this jumps from a territorial welfare case to a federal criminal matter. A federal case goes to a federal judge, not Wheeler.
And a federal judge doesn't take orders from a Montana mining company.
How do you prove it?
Ruth asked. I need a sample. Something from Ida's kitchen. The gravy, the water pitcher, anything she used to administer the poison. And I need a doctor's examination of Ellie, confirming symptoms consistent with chronic arsenic exposure.
The kitchen, Ellie said. She keeps a tin in the pantry. Top shelf, behind the flour. It's a small tin with a red label. She thinks I don't know it's there. She reaches for it every night when she makes my plate.
I can't search the house without a warrant.
You can if the homeowner gives consent. Tate shook his head.
Ida won't consent.
Ida doesn't own the house. Ellie stepped fully into the room. My father owned it. When he died, the property passed to his next of kin. That's me. Ida has guardianship of my person, not my property. I checked the deed at the county recorder's office 2 years ago.
The clerk let me look, because Ida sent me to pick up a tax receipt. The house, the land, the pig pen, it's all in Samuel Dawson's name. And Samuel Dawson's sole heir is Eleanor Ruth Dawson. The room went silent. Tate stared at her. Then he pulled his spectacles off and polished them, which Cole was starting to recognize as what the man did when he was recalculating everything. You're telling me you own that house? I'm telling you the deed says Samuel Dawson, and I'm his daughter. Ida never filed a property transfer because she didn't know she needed to. She assumed guardianship meant ownership. It doesn't. Section 47 of the Montana Property Code. Guardianship of a minor does not confer title to the minor's inherited real property. My God, Tate said softly. She's right. I know I'm right. I read it 4 times to make sure. Ellie's voice was steady now, hard. The voice of a woman who had spent 3 years in the dark, reading law by candlelight, building a weapon no one knew she had. If I own the house, I can grant you permission to search it. And if you find that tin, you've got your arsenic. And if you've got your arsenic, you've got a federal case. Tate put his spectacles back on. He stood up. Miss Dawson, I need you to write me a formal letter granting permission to search the premises at the Dawson property. Can you do that? Give me a pen. Ruth brought paper and ink. Ellie sat down and wrote. Her handwriting was clean, precise, with the careful loops of someone who had been taught by a patient father and refined by years of secret practice. She wrote the letter in 3 minutes, citing the property code, the deed reference, and her legal standing as heir. She signed it Eleanor Ruth Dawson and dated it. Tate read it twice. He folded it carefully and put it in his vest pocket. Masterson, you're with me. Mrs. Fenton, you stay here with Ellie. Lock the doors. Tate checked his pistol. If Whitley or anyone else from Ida's circle comes to this house, you don't open the door. You don't speak to them. You wait for me. What about Ida? Ruth asked. She'll see you coming. I'm counting on it, Tate said. I want her to see me walk into her kitchen with a legal search authorization signed by the rightful owner of her home. I want to see her face when she realizes the girl she called stupid just outmaneuvered her with territorial law. They walked to Ida's house in the early light. The 2 miners Tate had posted were still at the doors, bleary-eyed but standing. One of them nodded at the marshal. She's awake. Been awake all night. Heard her moving furniture around 3 in the morning. Tate's jaw tightened. Moving furniture. And burning something. Smelled smoke from the kitchen chimney about 4 o'clock. Cole and Tate exchanged a look. Tate knocked on the door. Hard. Official.
Mrs. Pruitt, Deputy Marshal Tate, open the door.
Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. Ida stood there in her nightdress, her hair down for the first time. Without the pins and the Sunday dress, she looked older, smaller. But her eyes were the same, cold, calculating, utterly controlled. "Marshal, it's early for a social call." "This isn't social." Tate held up Ellie's letter. "I have written authorization from the legal property owner to search these premises. Step aside, please." "Legal property owner?" Ida's laugh was sharp. "I own this house." "No, ma'am, you don't. The deed is in Samuel Dawson's name. His sole heir is Eleanor Dawson. She's granted search permission." Ida's face changed. Not all at once. It happened in stages. First confusion, then recognition, then something cold and dark sliding behind her eyes like a door closing. "That girl cannot sign legal documents. She's a minor under my guardianship." Montana territorial law allows a minor property owner to authorize searches of their own inherited property, ma'am. Section 47, subsection C. I verified it this morning. Tate didn't smile, but Cole saw a glint in his eyes. "Your stepdaughter was kind enough to cite the exact provision." The color drained from Ida's face. For 3 years she had told everyone Ellie was slow, stupid, broken. And now the girl she'd locked in a cellar had just reached through the walls and pulled the house out from under her. "Step aside, Mrs. Pruitt." Ida stepped aside. Her hands were trembling. The first time Cole had ever seen Ida Pruitt's body betray her. They searched the kitchen. The stove had been burning for hours. Tate opened the firebox and found the remains of a tin, blackened and warped by heat. She'd tried to destroy the evidence. But she'd been sloppy, or rushed, or both. In the pantry, behind the flour exactly where Ellie had said, they found a second tin. Smaller, unmarked. Tate opened it carefully. White powder, odorless, fine as sugar. "What is this, Mrs. Pruitt?" Tate asked, holding the tin up. "Baking soda." "Baking soda. Is that what was in the other tin you burned at 4 o'clock this morning?" Ida's mouth pressed into a hard line. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right. I'm confiscating this tin as evidence. I'm also noting for the record that you attempted to destroy evidence by fire approximately 5 hours ago." Tate tucked the tin into his saddlebag. "Cole, let's go." They walked out. Behind them, Ida stood in the kitchen doorway, watching them leave. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She smiled. It was a thin, razor smile that made the hair stand up on Cole's neck. "Mr. Masterson," Ida called sweetly from the porch. "You should check on your cattle." Cole stopped. "What?" "Your cattle. The herd you've got pastured 5 miles south. 40 head, isn't it? I hear the fencing out there is terrible." Things go missing in the night, especially when people are distracted. It was a threat, plain as daylight. Ida couldn't get to Ellie anymore, so she was going after Cole's livelihood. The cattle that were his only source of income, the money he needed to pay for Ellie's doctor, to fight the warrant, to survive. "Don't react," Tate murmured. "She's baiting you." Cole turned his back on Ida and walked. Every step felt like dragging chains. Behind him, that smile burned into the back of his skull. They were halfway to Ruth's house when a boy came running up the road, barefoot and panting. He couldn't have been more than 8. "Mr. Masterson, the livery man sent me. Says there's a rider come in from the South Road asking about you. Says the man's got a badge and papers from Texas.
Cole's blood froze. "What's his name?" Tate asked.
Didn't say. Big man, mean-looking, riding a black horse.
Cole looked at Tate. Tate looked at Cole. "The warrant," Cole said.
"Ida's letter," Tate said. "She didn't just write to me about you. She wrote to Fort Worth. She told Selby where you are."
The trap had been set weeks ago, before Cole ever went to Fort Ellis, before Ruth's testimony, before any of it. Ida had seen Cole at the fence that first day, and she'd started building her cage around him the same way she built them around everyone. And the cage was closing. Cole Masterson stood in the middle of a dusty Montana road with a federal arsenic case in one hand and a Texas arrest warrant in the other. And for the first time in his life, he couldn't tell which direction to run. So he did the hardest thing his father ever taught him. He stood still. The Texas lawman's name was Garrett Pike. He was everything the boy said: big, mean-looking, riding a black horse like death on a Sunday errand. He wore a silver star on his chest and carried a warrant with Cole Masterson's name on it, signed by a judge in Fort Worth 6 weeks ago.
Ida's letter had reached Selby fast. Selby's money had moved faster.
Pike tied his horse outside Hank's saloon and walked inside like he owned it. He set the warrant on the bar. "I'm looking for Cole Masterson, cattle drover, wanted for aggravated assault in the state of Texas. I've been told he's in this town." Hank looked at the warrant. He looked at Pike. He poured the man a whiskey without being asked. "He's here," Hank said, "but you might want to hear the whole story before you slap irons on him." "I don't need stories. I need a prisoner." "You need a drink first. Trust me." Pike drank. Hank talked. He told Pike everything. Ellie, Ida, the arsenic, the cellar, the trough. Pike listened with the flat professional patience of a man who had heard 100 excuses from 100 fugitives. When Hank finished, Pike set the empty glass down. "That's a sad tale. Doesn't change the warrant." "It changes the man the warrant describes, a man who broke another man's arm in 2 places. A man who broke the arm of the man who stole his 2-year-old son." Pike's jaw shifted slightly. The first crack in the stone. "The warrant doesn't mention a son." "Of course it doesn't. Selby's a banker. Bankers write the version that suits them." Hank leaned forward. "I ain't asking you to tear up the warrant. I'm asking you to wait. 2 days. Deputy Marshal Tate is building a federal case here. Arsenic poisoning of a minor. The woman who wrote to Selby about Cole is the same woman who's been poisoning a 19-year-old girl for 2 years. She contacted Selby to get Cole removed because Cole is the one who exposed her. That ain't my jurisdiction." "No, but hauling Cole back to Texas right now hands that woman a victory. She gets rid of the man who brought this to light. The girl loses her only advocate, and a federal case falls apart because the key witness, the man who found Ellie, who contacted Tate, who got Ruth Fenton to talk, is sitting in a Texas jail cell." Pike stared at Hank. "You're asking me to ignore a legal warrant." "I'm asking you to enforce it in 2 days, instead of today." "And if I say no?" "Then you'll take Cole, and the girl goes back to that house, and the arsenic goes back in her food. And 6 months from now, you'll read a 1-paragraph story in the Helena newspaper about how a troubled girl in a mining town died of natural causes, and her brave stepmother is just devastated." Pike picked up the glass, put it down, picked it up again. 2 days, Pike said. "Not a minute more. And Masterson doesn't leave my sight." "Fair enough." Cole was sitting on Ruth's porch when Pike came up the road with Hank. He stood up. His hand didn't go to his gun. He wasn't wearing one. He'd left it inside when Ellie told him weapons made her nervous.
"Cole Masterson?" Pike said. "That's me. I've got a warrant for your arrest out of Fort Worth, Texas."
"I know. I've been asked to give you 2 days. I don't usually take requests from saloon owners, but the situation here appears to be—" Pike looked at the house, at Ruth's curtained windows, at the town that had gone quiet as a graveyard. "Complicated." "It is. You try to run, I'll shoot you in the leg and drag you back. We clear?" "We're clear." Pike positioned himself across the street from Ruth's house like a guard dog, visible, patient, immovable. Cole watched him from the porch and felt the clock ticking in his chest. Inside, Ellie was writing. She sat at Ruth's kitchen table with paper, ink, and a fury that burned steady as a forge fire. She was drafting a legal petition. Not for Tate, not for the territorial court, for Cole. "What are you doing?" Ruth asked, watching over her shoulder. "Building a defense." Ellie didn't look up.
Section 14 of the Texas Criminal Code. Assault charges can be reduced if committed in defense of a minor child's welfare. Cole's son was 2 years old. Selby took him from his home. A father, retrieving his child from a man who stole him, is acting in defense of that child. "Ellie, you're not a lawyer." "No, but I read like one." She dipped the pen. "And right now, I'm the only person in this town who can write a legal argument that doesn't sound like it came from a saloon." "Tate could. Tate's a federal marshal building an arsenic case. He can't also defend a Texas assault warrant. That's a conflict. Cole needs his own advocate, and there isn't one within 200 miles. So it's me." Ruth sat down. "Child, where did you learn all this?" "In a cellar, in the dark, with a candle and a book." Ellie's pen moved fast. "Ida locked me up to break me. Instead, she gave me time. All I had was time and books. Pa left law books in the cellar before Ida knew they were there. By the time she found them and burned them, I'd already memorized the parts that mattered." "She burned your father's books?" "She burned everything of his. His watch, his letters, his photograph. Everything, except me. And she was working on that." Ellie's hand paused over the paper. A single drop of ink fell, spreading like a dark bloom. "The arsenic wasn't random, Ruth. She wasn't trying to make me sick. She was trying to make me die slowly enough that nobody would question it. 6 more months and I'd have been gone. She'd have sold the house, pocketed the money, and moved to the next town. I wasn't her first." Ruth's face went white. "What?" "Tate needs to check Helena. Ida came to Redstone Gulch from there. She married a widower in Helena before my father, a man named George Pruitt. He died too. Stomach ailment, they said. Left her a small inheritance. Before Helena, she was in Billings. Another widower. Another death. Another inheritance." "My God, she's done this before." "She marries men with property and no family. Men with children nobody will miss. The men die. The children become her labor force until they're used up. Then they die too." Ellie's voice was flat, clinical. The voice of a girl who had figured out the pattern from inside the cage and realized she was next in a line. "Pa was number 3. I was supposed to be the quiet ending." Ruth put her hand over her mouth and wept. Ellie didn't stop writing. Tate arrived an hour later. Ellie handed him 2 documents. The first was her legal defense for Cole, citing Section 14. The second was a list of names and dates. George Pruitt, Helena, 1876. William Sutter, Billings, 1873. Addresses,
approximate dates of death, and the suggestion that Tate request exhumation orders. Tate read both documents standing up, his spectacles fogged from the heat of the kitchen. He took them off, wiped them, put them on, and read them again. Miss Dawson. Yes, sir.
Where did you attend law school? I attended a cellar, sir. Tate folded the papers carefully. The defense for Masterson. It's good. It won't win in a Texas court on its own, but it's strong enough to get the charge reduced. Maybe dismissed, if we can establish that Selby unlawfully removed the child. Selby left Fort Worth, Ellie said. Abigail Masterson took the boy to Portland. I know because Cole told me. If Tate can establish that Abigail's departure with the child was facilitated by Selby, that Selby financed her disappearance, then the assault wasn't just a jealous husband breaking an arm. It was a father responding to the kidnapping of his son. That requires testimony from Abigail. Or from the child. Tate looked up. The boy? Thomas? He's 12 now, old enough to testify. If he remembers being taken from his home, if he remembers his father, a judge would hear that, even a Texas judge. We'd have to find him first. Portland. That's where Abigail went. Cole hasn't looked because he was afraid. Afraid she'd changed her name. Afraid Thomas wouldn't remember him. Afraid of what he'd find. Ellie paused. After this is over, I'll make him look. You seem very certain about what Mr. Masterson will do. He stutters when he's feeling something. He stayed when it would have been easier to run. He rode 200 miles to fetch you. I'm certain about what kind of man he is. That's enough. Tate put the papers in his vest pocket alongside Ellie's search authorization. His vest was becoming a filing cabinet. I'll send a wire to Portland, and another to Helena and Billings, requesting death records for the names you've listed. He looked at Ellie for a long moment. Miss Dawson, when this is over, you should consider studying law. Formally. When this is over, sir, I'll consider a lot of things. Right now, I'm considering not dying. Tate left. Ellie went to the porch. Cole was sitting on the step. Pike was across the street, cleaning his rifle. The sun was brutal, pressing down on the town like a hot iron. I wrote you a defense, Ellie said, sitting down next to him. I heard. You were listening through the wall. Walls in this house are thin. You heard what I said about Ida, the other husbands. Cole nodded slowly. She's a spider. Builds a web, catches a fly, eats it, moves on. Your pa was a fly. My pa was a good man who trusted the wrong woman. That doesn't make him a fly. That makes him human. I didn't mean, I know. Ellie pulled his hat, still on her head, lower against the sun. I also said I'd make you find Thomas. Cole's hands clenched between his knees. I heard that too. And I've been sitting here for the last hour trying to figure out if I'm more scared of a Texas prison or a 12-year-old boy who doesn't know my face. The boy. The boy. Cole's voice broke on the word. What if he's happy? What if Abigail gave him a good life, and I show up and wreck it? What if he looks at me and sees a stranger? What if he looks at me and sees the man who wasn't there? What if he looks at you and sees his father? Cole pressed his palms against his eyes. His shoulders shook once. He stopped it, locked it down. Years of practice. Don't do that, Ellie said. Do what? Swallow it. You told me to eat at the table instead of waiting for scraps. So I'm telling you, don't swallow the grief and pretend it's not there. That's what Ida trained me to do. That's not living. That's just surviving with better table manners. Cole dropped his hands. His eyes were red. The scar on his face looked deeper in the harsh light, like a riverbed cut into stone. When did you get so brave?
he asked. About 3 days ago, when a cowboy with a stutter told me I was worth more than pig slop.
They sat on the porch step, shoulders almost touching, watching Pike clean his rifle across the street. Two broken people, learning how to sit still in the same place at the same time without running. The next 36 hours moved like a river breaking through a dam. Tate's wire to Helena came back first. George Pruitt, deceased 1877. Cause of death, prolonged gastric illness. No autopsy performed. Wife inherited property valued at $800. Wife's name, Ida Pruitt. Then Billings. William Sutter, deceased 1874. Cause of death, wasting sickness. No autopsy. Wife inherited property valued at $600. Wife's name, Ida Sutter, née Pruitt. Then the arsenic test. Tate had sent the tin by emergency rider to a chemist in Butte. The result came back by wire. White arsenic, concentration sufficient to cause chronic poisoning and eventual organ failure if administered in small doses over 12 to 18 months. Tate filed federal charges against Ida Pruitt Dawson for attempted murder. 3 counts of suspected homicide pending exhumation, fraud, and child abuse. The case was assigned to a federal judge in Helena, not Wheeler, who suddenly recused himself when word of the scope of the investigation reached his desk. Reverend Whitley was arrested the same day. The church building fund was $340 short, and the receipts for Lucille's boarding house in Silver Falls were found in his desk drawer, hidden inside a Bible. The irony was not lost on anyone. Ida was taken from her house, Ellie's house, in irons. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She walked to the prison wagon with her chin up and her hair pinned, and her Sunday dress pressed smooth. As the wagon passed Ruth's house, Ida looked at the porch. Ellie was standing there, Cole beside her, Ruth behind her. Ida smiled that razor smile. "You'll miss me, girl," she called out. "You'll miss having someone who told you what you were. Without me, you're nothing. You're just a scared little animal who doesn't know how to live without a cage." Ellie stepped off the porch. She walked to the wagon. She stopped 3 feet from Ida, the same distance she'd kept that night on the porch when she'd said her name for the first time. "You're wrong," Ellie said. "I'm not nothing. I'm the girl who read law books in your cellar while you thought I was going crazy. I'm the girl who stopped eating your poisoned gravy and lived. I'm the girl who signed the paper that let the marshals search your kitchen. And I'm the girl who's going to stand in a courtroom in Helena and tell a judge every single thing you did to me, and to George Pruitt, and to William Sutter, and to every person you ever wrapped your hands around." Ida's smile flickered. "My name is Eleanor Ruth Dawson. My mother named me. My father raised me. And you are nothing but a woman in irons who picked the wrong girl to break." Ellie turned her back and walked to the porch. Ida didn't smile again. The wagon rolled out of town. The dust settled. Redstone Gulch exhaled. On the 3rd morning, Garrett Pike came to Ruth's porch. "Time's up, Masterson." Cole stood. He'd been expecting this. He was already wearing his boots, his hat. Ellie had given it back that morning, placing it on his head with both hands, adjusting it carefully. "It looks better on you," she'd said. "Everything looks better on me," he'd replied, and she'd almost laughed. Almost. Now Pike stood with the warrant and a pair of iron cuffs, and the almost laugh was 1,000 miles away. "Wait," Ellie said. She came out of the house carrying a folded document. She handed it to Pike. "What's this?" Pike asked. "A legal brief for the Texas court. Section 14 defense. Assault and protection of a minor child. Supporting evidence includes a signed affidavit from Deputy Marshal Eugene Tate, confirming that Arthur Selby financed the unlawful removal of Cole Masterson's minor son from the family home in 1875. Tate obtained a statement from the Portland Telegraph office confirming that Selby wired money to Abigail Masterson 3 times between March and June of 1875, before and during her departure. Pike read the brief. His eyebrows climbed higher with each page. "This is—" Pike looked at Ellie. "Who wrote this?" "I did." "You're a lawyer?" "No, sir. I'm a pig farmer's stepdaughter who reads books." Pike folded the brief and tucked it into his coat. He looked at Cole. "This doesn't void the warrant. You still have to come to Texas." "I know." "But if this holds up in court, and I ain't a lawyer either, but it reads solid, the charge gets reduced, maybe dropped, especially if the boy testifies." "If we find him," Cole said. "You'll find him," Ellie said, "because I already sent a wire to Portland. The response came this morning." Cole turned to her. "You what?" Ellie reached into her dress pocket and pulled out a telegram. Her hand was shaking. Not from arsenic this time, from something else entirely. "I wired the Portland City Registrar's office. I asked for the current address of Abigail Masterson, née Crawford, or any child enrolled in Portland schools under the surname Masterson or Selby." Ellie unfolded the telegram. "Thomas Cole Masterson, age 12, enrolled at the Portland Grammar School, living at 14 Maple Street with his mother, Abigail Crawford. She went back to her maiden name." Cole couldn't breathe. His hands hung at his sides. His mouth opened, but the stutter locked everything shut. Not just the words, but the air, the sound, everything. Thomas," Ellie said for him. "Your son. He's alive. He's in school. He's using your name, Cole." She gave him her maiden name, but he's registered as Thomas Cole Masterson. She kept your name for him. Cole sat down on the porch step. Not because he chose to, because his legs stopped working. He put his face in his hands and made a sound that wasn't a word and wasn't a sob. It was something older than language. The sound of a man who had lost the only thing that mattered and just learned it still existed. Pike stood there, big and mean-looking, holding a warrant and a pair of irons, and he turned his head away. He stared at the sky and blinked hard. Pike cleared his throat. "I'll give you 5 minutes." He walked across the street. Cole sat on the step and wept. Not the lockdown, swallowed grief he'd been carrying for 10 years. Real weeping. The kind that comes from the bottom of a man's chest and doesn't care who sees it. Ellie sat beside him. She didn't touch him. She didn't speak. She just sat there, close enough that he could feel her presence, and let him feel the one thing he'd forgotten was possible. His boy was alive. When Cole lifted his head, his face was raw and wet and cracked open like earth after rain. He looked at Ellie. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know to send the wire?" "Because you told me you were afraid to look, and I know what fear does. It tells you the answer will be bad, so you stop asking the question. I spent 3 years not asking for help because I was afraid the answer would be no. It almost killed me. I wasn't going to let fear kill you too." Cole reached out and took her hand. Not gently, desperately, like a drowning man gripping a rope. She didn't flinch. For the first time, she didn't flinch at a man's touch. "Come with me," he said. "To Texas?" "To Texas. To Portland. To wherever this goes." "You're under arrest, Cole. You can't exactly invite a guest." "I'll be out. The brief you wrote. Pike thinks it'll hold. Tate's affidavit proves Selby paid Abigail to leave. The charge gets dropped or reduced to a fine. I'll be out in weeks. And then? Then Portland. I find Thomas. I find my boy. And then? Cole looked at her. Really looked. The way he had that first day by the clothesline. Not at the bruises, or the fear, or the pig feet in her hair, but at the person underneath. The girl who read law in a cellar. The girl who stopped eating poison and survived. The girl who stood on a porch and told her abuser her name. And then I come back for you, Cole said. If you'll have me. Ellie pulled her hand back, not in fear, in thought. She looked at their hands, his scarred and calloused, hers thin and still trembling from months of arsenic. And she spoke carefully. I don't need you to come back for me, Cole. I need you to come back to me. There's a difference. I'm not a girl who needs rescuing anymore. I'm a girl who needs a partner. Someone who stands beside me, not in front of me. I can do that. Can you? Because you've got a habit of charging in on horseback and making noble sacrifices. That's not partnership. That's theater. You're tough, you know that? I survived Ida Pruitt. I'd better be tough. But her eyes were soft, softer than he'd ever seen them. Go to Texas. Fight the warrant. Find your son. And when you're done, when you've held that boy and told him you're sorry and started being his father again, then come find me. I'll be here. In Redstone Gulch? In my house. My father's house. It's mine now. Tate confirmed the deed. I'm going to fix it up. Burn the pig trough. Plant something in the yard that isn't mud. Maybe get a dog. A real dog, not a guard dog. One that sleeps on the bed and gets hair on everything. Cole laughed. The sound was broken and wet, but it was real. You're going to be all right, he said. I'm going to be more than all right. I'm going to be the first woman in Montana Territory to pass the bar exam. Ruth's going to help me study, and when I'm done, I'm going to make sure no girl in this territory ever gets locked in a cellar while the whole town looks away. Pike came back across the street. Time, Masterson. Cole stood. He looked at Ellie one more time. She was standing on the porch step in a borrowed dress, her hair still thin at the temples from the poison, her hands still trembling, a bruise on her wrist fading from purple to yellow. She looked like a woman who had walked through fire and come out the other side with the flames still in her eyes. He wanted to kiss her. He didn't. Not yet. Not when she was still learning that a man's hands could be gentle. There would be time. If the world was kind, and the world owed both of them some kindness, there would be time. All right, Cole said. Every week. He'll stutter on paper? Probably. Good. I'll know it's really you. Pike put the cuffs on. They were cold and heavy and final. Cole walked to Pike's black horse and mounted. He looked back once. Ellie stood on the porch. Hank stood behind her, arms crossed, a bottle in his hand, tears on his bulldog face. Ruth stood beside her, round and trembling and braver than she'd ever been. Tate stood at the edge of the road, hat in hand, spectacles catching the light. The town that had been a cage had become something else. Not perfect, not healed, but cracked open wide enough for light to get in. Cole rode south with Pike. The dust rose behind them. Ellie watched until he was a speck on the road, and then she watched the empty road for a while longer. Then she went inside. She sat at Ruth's table and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. She dipped the pen. She began to write. Not a legal brief, not a defense. A letter. To Thomas Cole Masterson, age 12, 14 Maple Street, Portland. A letter from a woman he'd never met, telling him that his father was coming. That his father,
had never stopped looking.
That his father stuttered when he was feeling something, and that was how you knew it was real. She signed it Eleanor Ruth Dawson and sealed it with wax. Outside, the Montana sun pressed down on Redstone Gulch, hot and heavy and indifferent. The pig trough sat empty behind the white house at the edge of town. The cellar door hung open, letting light pour into the darkness for the first time in 3 years. And Ellie Dawson, who had been drowned, starved, beaten, poisoned, locked in the dark, and sold for 3 pennies a day, sat in a kitchen that smelled like flour and lavender, writing letters in a hand that was steady for the first time in months. Her hands had stopped shaking. Not because the poison was gone. It would take months for the arsenic to leave her body. Not because the fear was gone. She would flinch at loud sounds for years. Not because the memories were gone. They would never be gone. Her hands stopped shaking because she was holding a pen. And a pen, in the hands of a woman who knows her own name, is the most dangerous weapon on the frontier. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Every like helps this story reach someone who needs to hear it. Someone who might be sitting in their own cellar, waiting for a light that hasn't come yet. Share it. Pass it on. Sometimes a story is the hand that reaches through the window in the dark. Drop a comment and tell me, what city are you watching from tonight? I want to know how far Ellie's voice has traveled. Because that's the whole point. A voice that was beaten silent for 3 years just spoke loud enough to reach you. Don't let it stop here.